Hello.
Hey there.
Hello? Hello?
Hi.
Hello. Hey,
Hi.
Jordan. It's Robert. This is Tim and Casey.
Yep,
Yeah,
I'm
Oh,
Tim.
we're just some random fucks. Not really. But we're fans of yours, and we're gonna do this interview and then stream it on. We have every twice a year on our board. We stream a bunch of albums together, and everyone listens along at the same time. And we've been starting as tradition, sort of interviewing people and playing those interviews in between the albums and stuff like that.
okay.
Um, so since you are there's a lot of followers of you on the forum. We
You.
figured that people would be really interested to hear what you have to think about a lot of stuff.
Okay.
Um, Tim is a unashamedly pretty super fan of yours.
Yes, I've been
Do,
following you
do
for
you
probably too long. Go on though.
do you do you want to lead off with some kind of question, Tim? Since you probably have a lot of things you wanted to ask.
Sure. No, but I guess a lot of people, even people who follow you and people on Mute, don't really know just how long you've been making music for. It's been almost 10 years, hasn't it?
Yeah, my first record, which I made when I was 17 and embarrassing,
It's not
came
bad.
out in 2004. So it's been 10 years since I first released music.
Wow. I've always wanted to know, and I haven't found the answer anywhere, but what really started you making music? I've read about Holy Haunted Head, but I'm not
Mhm.
sure if that was like something that you were inspired by or something you were part of or what
Um,
that was.
Holy Haunted Head came a little bit after. I mean, they were a band that was around in 2004.
Right.
But they were someone that the lead singer of that band, Simon Thrasher, was someone that I met in 2006 when I first started traveling a lot. Those first two records I made pretty much in total isolation and didn't really even play shows or like anything. They're total like bedroom albums that were not really intended to ever be heard by more than just my friends. So 2006 is when I started like finally traveling and meeting other musicians. And I met Simon on like the third day of the first tour I ever did. Um, we played this show in a basement and he played last and he like had a hood on, like a hoodie on,
Mhm.
and just sort of like sat cross-legged and everyone sat in a circle around him and we turned off all the lights and he just like sang these beautiful gorgeous songs that
Yeah.
really changed what I wanted to be doing in front of people a lot.
Right, and that's why I was thinking your later albums, especially like Mantra Songs and then Divorce Lawyers, sound a lot more in line with what Holy Haunted Head was. And I
Yeah.
was thinking like maybe that was a major influence for you going forward in creating music.
Yeah, it was Holy Haunted Head and Hop Along were the two
Hop Along too. I was
people that I
wondering.
met on those early tours that were, and Andrew Jackson Jihad. Those three people I met on that first tour and was like, oh, this is the kind of music I want to be involved in making.
What were the reactions like to those very early tours? Like, what, of people that were seeing you, or anywhere? Do you like have any particular memories of how people, how those songs were received compared to how they are now, or what it's like, how different it is touring now than it was back then when you're like a complete unknown, I guess.
I scared a lot of people in the beginning. Because I used to I ended every set on that tour with a song called Two Open Arms, which
Oh
is
yeah.
just me yelling, basically. The recording of that song doesn't really do too much justice to how much I just freak out when I
Yeah,
sing
it's
it.
it's very raw live. Like there are a
Uh,
few videos around and yeah, it's very different.
yeah, so there were a lot of shows where people did not want to talk to me afterwards. um, because I think I came across as like a little intense.
Mhm.
Um, and so subsequent tours, I started to learn how to like make jokes between songs, maybe, and be like a human being up there. Because otherwise, I think I was just freaking people out.
Well, that's the funny thing. A lot of the later things, like the later recordings that are out there of you live, you do a lot of like in-show banter and things. And I always wondered if that was something you preferred to do, just to like calm your nerves, or was that just something that you had to kind of get used to doing?
It's partly to calm me down. It's partly to calm the audience down and to make them. I mean, the thing about touring, and especially the way that I tour, which is like mostly DIY kind of shows and house shows and things, is that you're ultimately going to be hanging out with the people that you're playing a show with afterwards. Like,
Right.
it's not like you're going to a green room and then you go stay at a hotel or something, you know. So you're going to hang out with these people, and you want to sort of facilitate the beginning of some sort of friendship that can at least occur for that evening. You know, so afterwards, after the shows, we would always play like icebreaker games and things like that to try and like get to know the people. But talking a lot on stage became my way of kind of like creating further catharsis for myself sometimes, but also sometimes just to make everyone comfortable so that I wasn't just that guy who showed up that no one knew about and just like came and sang about semen and stuff and then left.
Well, no, that's the thing. You have such like very intense songs throughout all your records, and it would be very difficult to go from like 0 to 60 and make that transition between like, oh hey, I'm here, and singing, and then just what do you do afterwards? It's a hard bridge to gap.
Yeah, so and it's getting harder as I get older. Actually, I find that
you played some songs recently, and actually did some readings too, just last year and this year, right?
Yeah, and I'm getting more awkward after shows again, and I'm trying to remember how to like socialize and stuff. I think I'm doing an okay job at it, but the difference is that now people who come to the shows sometimes know who I am already.
Right, yeah, that must be a huge thing.
To see me play specifically, as opposed to stumbling upon me in a room somewhere.
Right.
And that's a very different dynamic to try and speak to those people afterwards. And I'm glad to do it, but it's, you know, they like know me already or have some sense of knowing me, and I don't know them. And so I'm sort of like, okay, well, who are you? Like, tell me about what you do. You know, let's have a conversation.
Would you say that is how you felt or still feel when you received all this like adulation and focus from divorce lawyers?
Well, that came way later. We released the record in 2009, and you know, a few blogs said some nice things, and like, and what have you, and like our friends said nice things to us about it. The people who we had met in our travels up till that point, but otherwise, it kind of just seemed like no one else was listening to it, and then like, you know, the band dissipated and what have you, and then it was a couple of years later that I was hearing that apparently there were some people in Montreal who were really frustrated that you couldn't get a physical copy of the record anymore, because the only way you could have bought it before was through our MySpace, and MySpace is gone and dead. So I made a Bandcamp for it to make it available again.
That was in 2010, 2011?
That was in... When was that? I think it was in 2011. That I may have put it
That's
up.
also when like divorce lawyers really started to pick up on a lot of the like major forums out there.
Yeah, I think that there suddenly was like a second life to it.
Yeah,
when I
very
put
much.
Because that's when I started getting emails from people and like letters and stuff and Tumblr questions, and you know, up until then I was pretty anonymous on the internet again for a while.
Yeah, I think. Well, I mean, I think that kind of has risen up because people feel a very personal connection to the album. Is that it's like one of those sort of albums that like means a lot to them specifically. It's not just like something that they enjoy listening to, but they have like a very strong emotional attachment to it. So like
Hmm.
the fandom of it has kind of like surged up on the back of that, of people listening to it and like, you have to listen to this, it changed my life, and they want to share it to other people.
Right.
So
Yeah, it seems to be very word of mouthy,
Yeah, very
you
much.
know. But I do remember that, like, at one point in time, I could always track back a listener to someone that I know. I could always be like, oh, well, so and so who knows so and so who knows so and so, so that's why you've heard of this
6 degrees
record.
of divorce
60,
lawyer.
I was
I
just
like
gonna
it.
say that too. 60 degrees of divorce
But
lawyers.
then there started to become people who it was like, oh, I don't know you at all, and like no one I know knows you at all, and how did you hear this? Like,
Are
because we
you
didn't.
are you pleased with the reaction?
I mean, I am. I'm pleased with at least like the fact that a lot of people seem to have been able to find something really positive through it, which I'm very surprised about myself because I feel like it's a very negative record. Um, and I felt very self-conscious about it when I made it and about releasing it because it seemed very negative to me. But a lot of people, especially a lot of queer people, have responded to it in a very personal way that means a lot to me. And like to me, that means that it's successful. So
Right. I want to go back to divorce lawyers later, but first I want to ask about my favorite album of yours, which is Mancha Songs, which came
okay.
obviously before. I think you've stated before that this is also your favorite release of yours, isn't it?
It's the first release I ever did that I think is good.
That's a good way to look at it.
I don't really care about. Well, I mean, One Day the Horses Will Have Their Revenge has like a charm to it that's like, oh, he's 17 and he can't play the guitar. It's cute. And Make Blankets Your Yard has some moments that I like, but ultimately I'm just like, why did I like turn up the fuzz on parts of this so loud that it just hurts your ears? And like, I don't know what I was doing. But Mantra Songs feels like the first thing that I wrote that I was really proud of because unlike the first two records, I feel like I was trying to just be very straightforward.
Right.
And that came from playing shows. I was touring and I was playing songs from Make Blankets Your Yard, and I was like, these fall really flat because they're just so abstract.
Right. They're like bedroom songs, like you said.
Yeah, like I was like, I don't know what people are gonna get out of me singing these really abstract lyrics in really short bursts.
Right.
Without me being able to explain what's going on in them, and I was really bad at explaining what was going on in those songs. Like I knew what was going on in them, but I was just very bad at explaining it. So, I started writing songs like Stranger, because I just wanted to be like, okay, well, this is like a thing that happened, and I'm just going to say what happened.
Right.
Very directly.
Another song that has a lot of those same feelings about is it's blanking me now. I can't think of it as the title.
Housewife Part 2, is that what you were thinking of?
No, I was gonna say Housewife Part 2, but I do want to talk about that too because it's just the best song on Mancha Songs, in my opinion. It's everything about it is so perfect. It's straightforward and fantastic.
Tim is gushing, but I guess I would want to ask, like, how do you get yourself? Understandably, I can understand why you would feel self-conscious about releasing a lot of music like this. So, I guess how do you like get yourself to, I don't know, I guess like the courage or feeling of like wanting to put these really personal and emotional feelings out there in like such a public way? Or how difficult is that to do?
I mean, a lot of it is really has been possible because I have very supportive friends who are willing to hear these kinds of songs and sort of be straight with me about what they think is good to do publicly. I mean,
Right.
and also, I mean, I like art that does that. So every single time that I sort of second guess myself and I'm like, oh, maybe this is like too much and I shouldn't say this because that's gonna freak everybody out, or like that's not okay or whatever, I remember that the artists that I really appreciate are people who did those things, who sort of say the hardest stuff first.
Right.
So it sometimes takes me a while to get comfortable with it, but eventually, and there are still some songs that I've written and put out on albums, but that like I don't really play them live because I feel very uncomfortable playing them. They had to be written and they had to come out of my body or whatever, but
Right.
to play them live is something I don't do very much because they're just upsetting to me and to everyone else in the room, and not in like a good way.
Right.
So
The song I was thinking of was Liturgy Part 2. And is that one of those songs that you don't like playing in public or playing around other people? I don't even know if it was on an album exactly. I
no,
know I have
Liturgy
it.
Part 2 is going to be on the next record.
Oh, okay.
So it hasn't officially come out on anything yet. I do like playing that song, even though that is one of the heavier
It is
things
the
I have written.
heaviest.
But the song is about my relationship with my sister partially, and sort of some shared experiences that her and I have had in terms of sort of sexual violence against our person.
Right.
I played the song for her before I played it for anyone. I wanted to, as is often the case if I'm writing a song that has something to do with someone else, I always play the song for that person first and make sure that they are comfortable with its content before I play it publicly.
Right.
Because I think it's really like not an awesome thing to do, to write a song about something really personal about someone else and then to just go sing it to the world without checking in. I mean, it depends on the circumstances. I mean, I've written songs about my abusers, for example, and I didn't go check in with them.
Right.
But, they can fucking die. But, if it's someone who I care about, and obviously want to sort of protect their vulnerable feelings, then, it's not always up to me whether or not that can go out into the world.
Right. So what other songs have really fallen into that category of being very personal ones where you've wanted to ask the person you're writing it for?
Probably the one that, I mean, a lot of Divorce Lawyers was like that. But the one on Divorce Lawyers that was the hardest was Smother, which is written about a friend of mine who has cystic fibrosis. We had this kind of very intense night together where he explained how he feels like death is kind of always looming over his shoulder because of his illness. He was told when he was a child that he wouldn't live to be past a certain age, and he's already past that age, so he's just like waiting. And that one was hard because the person who that song is about is not exactly interested in things like poetry or songwriting.
Right.
And so when I played it for him, he was very confused because there are some metaphors in the song, and he thought that everything that I was saying was really literal and kind of was upset at first. and then I had to sort of like break the song apart and explain every line to him, and then he was okay with it. But to sort of honor him, I have never played it in front of people he knows. So I only play it like when I'm traveling or something.
To kind of circle back to now, you recently just released your first material about 5 years with a covers album.
Yeah.
Apparently, those songs have been floating around for quite a while.
Yeah, some of those songs I have had sitting on my computer for a ridiculous amount of time. And I was actually going through like old emails not that long ago, and I found these emails with a friend from back in 2010 where I was like, oh, I'm working on this covers record. I was like, oh, wow, okay. Yeah, I finished it this year. I recorded the bulk of it this year. Did a bunch of re-recording of some of the songs that I didn't like, and then used sort of various recordings of that I did like that were sitting around.
Yeah, and apparently this album, which is called He Could Have Been a Poet or He Could Have Been a Fool, the proceeds are actually going towards funding the next album?
Yes. Because the next record I'm going to pay someone who knows what they're doing to record it.
Oh, but you've been doing such a good job.
And I really would like to have like a nice recording.
Right.
I have, and mostly because we're working with different instrumentation this time, and the instrumentation this time is better suited for like very good live off the floor recording.
Right.
So we're gonna try and record the whole record live in a church.
Right. So I wanted to ask on that one. You said before that kind of band disbanded. People have gone their own way since Horse Museum.
Mm-hmm.
Are you going to try to get everyone back together for this record? Or is it just going to be different musicians?
It's, well, two of the people who are going to play on this record were in the Horse Museum, although they'll be doing slightly different things than they did last time. The drummer, who was in the Horse Museum before, Jason McCrimmon, he's going to play bass now. And my friend Paul is going to play drums. Paul is on the covers record a little bit. And my friend Sarah, who sang and played accordion and piano on the Horse Museum record, she is going to play piano and sing. So,
could you reveal a little bit, well, if you care to, what is going to be different about the instrumentation more in the upcoming record, or what makes it more suited to that live sort of space?
Well, it's electric for one thing, so there will not be an acoustic instrument on this record, I guess, except for piano. And it'll be a lot simpler. There won't be giant orchestral things happening. Because that took forever. And was a headache. And I also just want to explore a different sound. I mean, every record I've made so far sounds a little different, I think, and I'm constantly trying to do something new.
Now, on your last record, Divorce Lawyers, people were comparing you to a lot of bands like New Jamal Hotel, for instance, and even Exuma. Do you have any reaction to that?
Exuma was cool, although I don't really see the similarity other than that we both sing about like
that much either. I don't understand where that came from, but I would be pretty proud to be compared to Exuma.
Yeah, they're like a fucking badass band that I think is really cool to be compared to. But I mean, I think the only similarity really is that like they have this sort of dark obsession with the end of the world, which lingers on my record as well. The Nutrimoke Hotel comparison is like tricky because like while I do understand it, I sometimes find it a little bit reductive.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
I don't think the thematic and conceptual and like even a lot of the compositional things necessarily line up in that way, but people hear some of the instrumentation that reminds them of it. and that kind of just like draws an instant comparison in people's head. But I think it's not very fair to
And
say.
we kind of knew that would happen when we were making it. We were like, it got to a certain point where it was like, oh well, we just added singing saws to all these songs, you know. But like, I play the singing saw, and I really like the singing saw, and I wanted
It's
to
my
add
favorite
it
instrument too.
Like,
to the
does
record.
Nutrimook Hotel get a monopoly on the instrument? Like, no one else
Yeah.
can use
Yeah.
it, or you sound like Nutrimook Hotel, you know?
You can't even play sing saws or sing about semen without being compared to Neutral Hotel.
Exactly. I mean, I really like Nutrimook Hotel. It's been a few years since I've listened to them because honestly, the comparisons between their record and ours has sort of made me feel weird about listening to Nutrimook Hotel. But you know, that record is something that I really cherish. But I think a major difference is that I find that their record is really hopeful, and my record is really not. And you know, the relationships between bodies and sort of the confusion of bodies is somewhat similar, but I think that they are ultimately very different relationships with bodies. So, but you know, if you're going to make a tactile record about sex and sexuality and the confusion of that, it's gonna sound like Nutrimook Hotel a little bit. Even though there are other bands who did that before Nutrimook Hotel too. But what are you gonna do?
Exactly.
Do you find yourself like making your newer music, or you're talking a lot about how it was not very hopeful or it was very down? Like, do you find that the newer music you're writing is more optimistic or a little more positive, or not?
No. No. Part of the reason why this follow-up has taken so long is, I mean, there's several reasons. One is that we started writing it as a Horse Museum record, and the Horse Museum fell apart before we could record it as a Horse Museum record. And there were a few years where I was really still trying to convince everyone to get back together and do that, because I really just wanted it to sound like that. But I kind of had to give up on that. That wasn't going to happen. Everyone's lives are just a little too like different right now for us to be able to get in a room together for a week and record.
Right.
So it was partly that, but partly also that it's taken me a long time to become comfortable with the idea of releasing these songs because they are much darker.
Right. That's another thing I wanted to kind of ask about. I think you said before that for a while there you had stopped writing entirely, and my understanding is that most of this new album has been floating around for a lot of years.
Yeah.
Is there anything else you're going to finish up with the new album, and what has made you stop writing music?
Well, I am writing music again now, which is good.
Yay!
The problem was one of the songs that's on this new record I spent 3 years on. So I was writing,
Oh,
I was only writing one song, and I couldn't seem to write a different song until that song was done. And that song just seemed like it was never going to be done. I still don't really know if I think it's done, but I'm done working on it. It's very long. But that took up a good amount of space in my brain, and once I was done that, I started writing other songs again, and I have actually a split release that's going to be coming out later this year with
really?
with Unraveler, and that's all original songs. So
It's fantastic.
that I've written more recently.
Yeah, but in that time that you were not really writing different songs, you have written a book, directed a film, and done various other projects.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, the book I wrote at the same time as Divorce Lawyers, but it came out in 2013 because it takes a few years to get a book out into the world.
Right.
Right.
But I made a film in 2012, and currently I'm writing 2 more films, and I am also almost done writing another book. um, that I've also spent about 3 years on.
Oh man, okay, so I don't know if I should jump right to the book, but how different is this new book from the Skin Team? Like,
Pretty different. It's similar in that it's very fragmented, but other than that, it's pretty different. Stylistically, some of it is a little different, being a little bit more. I'm sort of playing around with form and structure even more, and it's less narrative. So it has a loose thread that sort of connects a bunch of little stories, but it's kind of like vignettes.
do you have a working title for it just yet?
Yeah, it's called The End of Cinnamon.
Nice.
Yeah, I recently just watched your film, and it was very, very intriguing. I greatly enjoyed it, actually, and
Great.
I just want to know, like, who are your main influences when it comes to film?
The people that I'm specifically, I sort of did this thing where, because it's my first film, I specifically put in visual references to other first films by filmmakers that I really like. So Greg Araki is one of them, and I stole his like upside down shot. In every Greg Araki movie, there's a shot of someone lying down, but the frame is flipped so that it looks like they're upside down.
Yeah,
So I used one of those. Also, James Bidgood, who only made one film called Pink Narcissus, but that film has a lot of like milk and grass and blood and stuff, as well as the film Fireworks by Kenneth Anger, which is also the album cover for the Covers record is a recreation of a moment from that film as well. But those three films weigh in pretty heavily on what I was doing with my film.
So what do you feel you'll be doing next with the next two films you're working on? Do you expect to kind of keep within that same style of referencing other directors, or do you think you'll try to work on your own style, or what's next?
Well, the two that I'm writing are very different from each other. One of them is like one of them is a sort of narrative piece that I won't say too much about yet because it's still pretty rough. And the other one is kind of like a reenactment documentary video project that may go very well or may go terribly. I really can't decide yet. If like I have sort of all these pieces in my head that I want to bring together, these various historical moments that sort of make sense to me to thread together to sort of tell a personal narrative, but I don't know if it will actually work. But it is about my fear of turning 27 years old, which I am about to do.
Yes, I've been to. Well, I told everyone actually to tell you happy birthday at some point during this happy future birthday because it's just a little bit over, a few weeks away now.
Yeah.
I had like a huge fear of turning 21, and it didn't turn out so bad. Speaking of age, I wanted to ask, you've been making music under the OMAP Records moniker for quite some time, and I want to ask about the label and your time at Oxford Hotel.
Well, the label is kind of dead.
Yeah. You still got the tattoo, though.
It lives on in our hearts and in our flesh because we've got it burned into our flesh. Right. But in terms of a label, it doesn't really seem to exist anymore, although I have sort of wondered whether or not I would for just like the sake of the gesture, put OMAP Records on my next release. Just because I feel like that's part of the project or
It's
something.
the history of it.
Yeah. And the Oxford Hotel, I don't know. It's weird. That house is obviously still there in Kensington Market. And it's strange to walk past now because, for example, the people who live there now never repainted my bedroom.
Oh.
And one night I had a manic episode in that house, and I wrote in giant letters on my wall with red paint, "Your body will never be familiar," which is a Leonard Cohen line, and you can still see it through the window. And I'm just, I'm like, well, maybe they like it, and that's cool, but it's just really weird to me that is still there.
Right.
That there's still like evidence on the wall that I lived in that room and that I freaked out in that room a bunch of times. So
You've been a lot better dealing with a lot of things that have come up, like manic episodes and things like that in the past few years. Have things really been easier for you as you get older?
Well, I had things under control pretty well for a few years until this winter. And this winter, the episodes came back, and I was in the hospital for a while, and things were pretty bad again. And because of that, like, shitty things, like, for example, yesterday I mailed out all the CD orders that have come in since February. And I felt terrible that I had taken so long to get people things that they paid for. But, I was incapacitated largely. And even when I wasn't incapacitated, it was the nighttime. And the post office is closed at night. So, like, for example, the covers record, I made a lot, like, to sort of get myself out of the depression and sort of through it to the other side. Which is why some of those recordings are a little raw, I guess.
Yeah, I was thinking maybe it's not the one you intended, but the Shoo cover.
Yeah, the Shoo cover I recorded in my bedroom
Do you find
on a pretty bad day.
Do you use music as, I guess, I think artists that have like struggled with depression and things like that, they use their music in relation to that in a lot of ways, like sometimes as an outlet, or sometimes do you find it as a way of like trying to move past it, or just like distract yourself from it, like just kind of forget the other thoughts that are going on in your head because you are just into the music? Or is like the music a way of just like coming to terms with those issues for you, I guess? It's
definitely a way of coming to terms with things. Not necessarily in a sense of resolve, because I don't really believe in resolve. But in terms of, once you can articulate something, it's a little less scary somehow. It's like once you can say it out loud, this is what it is. Even if the way that you're saying it out loud is maybe kind of complicated and not everyone knows what you're talking about, you've at least expressed it. And in particular, hearing from people that they got some sort of catharsis out of it too, and that sort of helped them through something too, is like really powerful. It makes you feel like not totally useless. Which is like a feeling that I have quite often, in particular with a guitar in my hands. So it's nice to have that kind of a response. But for me, it's honestly just about getting it out of my body. It's like it's a complete and total physical thing. Because I also write, and that sort of that gets the thoughts out, but it's not the physical. It's not quite as physical. Like I have to sing also to get it out of my body, you know?
Right. So this was something I was going to ask, but you've released pretty much every form of medium now, like from film to books to music. I was wondering, is music really where you feel kind of the purest outlet for you?
I still feel like writing is really my home, because ultimately the music for me is a way of organizing words out loud.
Right.
Like I started making music because it's honestly just an easier way for people to hear your words. People don't want to read books anymore, which is sort of sad, but like a little true, which means, you know, I still write books, but books are also a much longer process to create and to put out into the world, and for people to intake. So, you know, if you can write a song that's 3 to 11 minutes long, that, you know, does something for someone, then I don't know. I just feel like people are much more willing to sit there and listen to a song, and then if they like the song, then maybe they'll listen to an album. You know, especially in the current age when everything is available, and it's a little overwhelming to know what to listen to.
No, I've suggested divorce lawyers to friends who didn't even, like, you know, people who didn't even really listen to music, and people have gotten attached to it. Actually, I showed it to a Colombian friend I have, and he put it on a mixtape, and his parents ended up playing it in their car for work. And it's such a strange thing to see how people connect to your music. Like, even maybe they don't grasp what it is exactly, or like they don't get the intention, but they understand that this is something that we should be listening to. This is really solid. I don't know if you want to talk about this, you know, if not, it's fine, but a lot of your songs talk about a few different key subjects: winters, horses, and hospitals.
Sorry, what's the first one?
No worries, let's see what that is. Don't worry, we'll cut out. Winters, horses, and hospitals. I think you've explained horses before, but you seem to have this thing about winter especially.
Yeah. I'm outside having a smoke really quickly.
Yeah, no worries.
Okay.
Take a break.
Take a break. Don't worry. Wait until I'm not outside and all these cars are driving past me.
Oh, don't worry. Just take a break. It's fine.
Cool. We'll come back to that question in a minute. How are you guys all doing?
Oh, I'm good. I think we were all super nervous coming into this, but you've been really, really great, you know, Jordaan.
I had a panic attack last night about it.
Oh man, did you? We're really sorry. We've been just as nervous. Well, maybe not that nervous.
I'm always worried I'm gonna just like not you know, like that all the words are just gonna.
We're the same way here.
This is just a bunch of unarticulate, unsocial nerds out there. Like, oh god, what if I'm not gonna be able to talk to them?
Yeah, we've all been kind of panicking about it, but man, you've made everyone feel really at ease, Jordaan.
Yeah.
Good. Well, honestly, the question that I was a little afraid of the most is the Nutrimocotel question, because I feel like I always get defensive.
I was like saying, do we really have to ask that? Because I was like, of course it's not.
Too. Yeah, because we don't.
I don't see it
really
personally.
Snarky answer, but you guys don't. You seem like nice people, and I don't really know if you. Is it my snarky answer?
No, it's fine. Like, it didn't even seem snarky. Like, I would get really upset with comparison to, not because Nutrimocotel is bad. It's just like, it's such a different thing.
Well, it's a heavy one. You know, people really love the record in a way that's religious for some people,
right.
and to get compared to that is sort of mind-bending and crazy.
Yeah.
Both positive and negative scales. It's like some people, you know, the positive version of that, it's like people think I made something that's that great, which is really cool. But the negative side of that is that people then sometimes think that, well, all I did was make a lesser version of that.
That's
right.
That's like my intention. You can go ahead.
If it's religious, then that is heresy. Like,
yeah, exactly.
No, that's why I was like really trying, or I still want to really focus on like your past records because you didn't start with Divorce Lawyers, and that's not really who you are. That was more like a
Yeah,
band thing.
and part of, and maybe I should talk about this when the interview is more official, but part of the reason that Divorce Lawyers sounded the way that it did is because I played all the songs one night alone for a friend, and he was like, "This is gonna scare the shit out of everybody, and the only way that anyone's ever gonna want to listen to this is if you like get a band and make it sound kind of accessible. Because if you just record yourself singing these songs straight up like you did with Mantra songs,
Whoa.
it's just gonna scare the shit out of everyone."
Right.
And that really hit home.
I don't know. Maybe this should be more official, but you've done some of the Decline of Western Civilization songs, and you've done them solo without the band or anything. They didn't sound bad at all. Like, I don't think it would have been such a big deal to make Divorce Lawyers without the band, even.
Yeah, it was more fun to do it with a band though, because I felt supported by some people in this process, because I felt like they were scary too, and so it was like, having a group of people who believed in me enough to put their time and their energy into trying to make a record like that with me really meant a lot to me, and really made me feel like, okay, well, this is something that people will want to listen to, because I like listening to parts of it because I don't have anything to do with parts of it at all. I just get to like listen to my friends be fucking cool. And that's great.
Yeah.
I like that. So it makes it a better listening experience for me, at least.
Yeah.
Do you like, have you, I mean, I know it's hard a lot of time to go back and listen to the stuff that you yourself has recorded, especially if it's some of the really older stuff that you don't like as much, but like, do you ever find yourself like listening to your own records at all, or is that just you, do you end up just being like too critical and being like, oh, I wish I hadn't done that or whatever?
I have listened to them. Divorce Lawyers probably more than any of the others, just because there are parts that I always like. Some of my favorite moments on that record are, again, not really me.
Right.
Like, I can listen to Him, Her any day because I'm not even on that song. I didn't write it at all. It's just my friends making really beautiful music. And like the very last like minute of the wrong parts, where like my husband and all my friends did all this great crazy shit that I couldn't have even imagined. So there are moments like that I really like hearing. And I used to have this ritual when I was touring where whoever I was touring with, we would do this thing where we would, in the car, listen to each other's old albums together.
Oh, man.
It was sort of strange, but it was kind of like, you're touring with someone and you know what they're playing currently, right, because you see it every night, but you kind of want to get this sort of sense of history of them too. And so we would do things like listen to Mantra songs or whatever all the way through. And then I would listen to their old record all the way through, and we would just sit in silence and listen to them. And it was very weird.
No, it sounds kind of nice, though.
Yeah, it was like a nice way of sort of getting to know your tour mates a little bit better.
I think you played with the Unicorns, too, didn't you?
Yeah, a long time ago. Time ago. That was like the first show I ever played, and it was with this band that I was a part of for like all of 5 minutes. And I was like the useless member of the band who played saw and accordion.
Oh.
But they were like really loud, and sound guys had no idea how to mic a saw or an accordion. So I mean, you could never really hear what I was doing. But it was fun. I got to play with the Unicorns and Death from Above and Cuff the Duke and like some other like Canada bands.
That must have been just like at 17, 18, right?
I was 16.
16. Oh man, that was even younger.
Yeah,
that's incredible to think about.
It was before I started making my own music at all. And it was the lead singer of that band who was very encouraging to me to start doing that. The song "Your Couch" was written about him.
Oh wow.
About sleeping on his couch.
Do you think that I think there's like a certain amount of a lot of artists, younger artists coming up these days that like get big on some hit on YouTube or Bandcamp or something like that, and then kind of like then they end up touring and almost like thrust into this whole world and like a set of skills that they weren't really prepared to have because they've always just like been releasing their music recorded online or whatever, and now suddenly it's like you have to be a live performer, but they've never really had to do that. Like, do you think that there's value for everyone, or at least for a lot of people, in like in learning to be perform and to be able to make your music be able to be performed live rather than just like getting it out there exclusively online and then like having to perform afterwards? Or
I mean, it depends on the kind of music, because I know lots of friends who make like really great electronic music, for example, but it's completely stuff that they can only do sort of through their laptop, and
yeah,
and how to do that live is a really complicated process, and how to do that live and make it interesting is a completely different process. Because you can just go up there and like be on your laptop, but
Right.
you want to like make it something more than that. And I really appreciate music that doesn't always translate live too. But I think that live performance has its own sort of weight and its own sort of space. The only thing that I'd say about it is that I feel like it's sometimes a little bit negative, in the sense that people get really into the way that a record sounds sometimes, and then they go see the band and maybe the band live doesn't sound like that, and they get really disappointed. And that's kind of crappy, because it's like, sometimes people just sound different live, and the live experience should be something different anyway. I think I don't really have much interest in going and paying money to see someone who's going to sound exactly like a record.
Absolutely.
Because I could just put the record on,
Yeah, I think this is kind of unrelated. I think Death Grips has that going on a lot, where they don't sound anything like they do on the record, off the record. But
Who's this?
Death Grips.
Death
Right?
Grips. I
Most
don't
rap kind of
know
sounds that
them
way.
still.
No,
Oh, really?
It's okay. You're not missing. Well, Lance, cut that out.
I've heard that they're crazy.
yeah, they have very very energetic live performances, and a lot of, I don't know. People define them as hip hop, but not always. It kind of falls in between with electronic music as well and other
Man.
things. But
And
Jordan, for the longest time, like, if you went to your last FM, or you went to the page for Horse Museum, Death Grips would be related. Like, they would be a suggested artist. And I kept on thinking, man, that's not even true, but you know how
it's just Last FM mixes things that, like, people that listen to the Horse Museum are also listening to Death Grips. Therefore, we're going to put them on the related thing, even if they have nothing to do with each other.
But I think
Right.
it's a bit different.
Yeah, I mean, I think the Last FM algorithm is weird, because I don't. I've looked at our Last FM page a couple of times, and I don't even know the bands that we apparently sound like.
Yeah, it's a strange thing.
Other than the microphones, I think the microphones is someone that we get compared to, and I know who they are. But
Well, I want to ask about that too. Do you feel like, are you like okay with that comparison, or do you feel like it's not too much, not very correct?
I mean, again, it's like I don't really know how I feel about comparing one band to another. To me, it's just really like lazy journalism. It's like, why don't you just describe music?
Exactly.
It's very when someone writes a music review that's like, oh, it sounds like Sonic Youth meets fucking
It's just like, why not describe the
like
music?
a VHS copy of Super Fights playing in the background plus low. I'm like,
Yeah.
what does that mean? I don't know what that means.
And
Just describe it.
I think a lot of music critics want to put things in the context of a trend too. It's like, oh well, he's like this other new artist that had an album this year that's part of this new wave of people that are trying to sound like this or that, and it's like
Yeah,
trying to
art criticism in general has always had a history of doing that.
Yeah.
It wants to put things into like
boxes.
periods and boxes and things that make sense, and you know, I never really knew where we fit, and I never really knew. I still don't know where we fit.
Well, that's the thing. Like, we were mentioning how religious people are with Neutral Milk Hotel. I think that's starting to become the thing with divorce lawyers, especially. Like, the amount of fanaticism for that album. It's huge and growing.
See, it's weird because it doesn't really affect my regular day-to-day life much, and what I mean by that is like Toronto as the city where I live.
Right.
It is very rare that I meet someone here who even knows who I am.
Have you been recognized though?
Yes, but mostly when I'm traveling.
Ah, okay.
Toronto, I don't get recognized here much. Although I did go to a show a couple months ago and someone figured out it was me and sort of freaked out and was like, "Divorce lawyer!" It was really cute. But that doesn't happen very often.
Right.
And like, you know, I'm still not on a label or anything. You know, like I'm still doing everything completely by myself, and so because of that, I feel pretty separate from like the music industry or whatever. And
Are you kind of thankful for that? Like being separate and being able to kind of live your own life and do your thing and not be bothered too much
yes
day to
and
day?
no. Sometimes it would be nice if someone wanted to help. Because sometimes, you know, I'll get lazy about things, or I'll get, you know, it's nice to have someone like pushing you with a deadline sometimes. But I like having complete and total control over what it is that I'm making.
Right.
That's definitely like important to me. And that's a rare thing to get on a record label. So
Right.
I don't know. I don't know what that would look like still. I try not to think about it too much because, you know, when I was younger and Divorce Lawyers came out, I really had very high hopes for it in a real way. And I think another part of why I sort of stopped playing shows for a little while, other than that I had gone back to school and what have you, was that I felt a little let down because I put so much work into that record, and it felt like no one cared at the time.
Right. There's like no instant feedback for you there.
Yeah. So, you know, it's been nice in the past few years to have it seem like people care. But I don't know. We'll see how they feel about the next record.
Man, I don't think you have anything to worry about there. You state that would be a different album, like it would not be like Divorce Lawyers, but I don't really think that's a bad thing.
Yeah, I don't really like to repeat myself, so
yeah.
There are some sort of themes that are carrying over a little bit and stuff. I mean, like this record is still very much about the end of the world, and there's a lot of questions about identity and things like that still, but the focus of this new record is more about my mental health issues.
What the major trends in your music are horses, winters, and hospitals, right? And I want to ask, what's behind those themes for you?
Well,
I know you've answered the horses one before. Sorry, go on.
Yeah, winters are
thing as well. I would like to talk about too.
Well, I used to be really, really obsessed with conspiracy theories about the end of the world. I'm not so much anymore because the world didn't end in 2012. But I used to be pretty like convinced that the world was ending / I still think that it is, but it's just ending very slowly.
Yes.
So there's that. Winters occur frequently in my work because winters are always when things are roughest with my mental health, and in particular, just sort of that seems to be the time when everything around me also just falls apart every year.
Right.
It's always a rough time for my friends as well. I mean, I have a lot of other friends with mental health issues. You know, we sort of find each other and take care of each other as best we can. So winters are very difficult to get through, but every single time I make it through one, I'm like, okay, I did it. I got through to the other side of that one. Now I'm gonna enjoy the summer and the fall
Yeah.
and
And you made it through this one, which sounds like it was especially rough.
This was the first really bad one in a while. I mean, they're never great, but this one was pretty fucking terrible, and both emotionally and just as an actual winter, it was
Yeah, it was
Yeah.
long.
Yeah.
it was long and
Yeah.
cold as
Cold.
shit, and like
Fucking minus 35 almost every day. It's awful.
yeah, not cool. Like that's just um. So So I mean, winter plays a big part in what I do because I tend to sort of hole up in the winter and write a lot
This is
through my
just
depression.
gonna be a very weird personal aside suggestion, but I have found anyway that in the winter, if you don't do this already or if you're not aware, having extra vitamin D in the winter goes a long way because you just don't get it naturally, and it has like a really big effect on your psyche that you wouldn't expect. But sorry, that's just like a weird thing of mine.
Totally that everyone should hear because I do take vitamin D during the winter and it has helped.
Despite how bad this winter has been, it wasn't as serious as years ago when I believe you talked about this before, but you had a blackout, like a manic blackout, and do you feel like talking about that or how it relates to music, or is it just such a separate thing that it's unnecessary?
Well, a lot of the new record is about that winter in particular, because I wrote most of the record during that winter. I would say that the thing that's a little funny about this record is that I wrote most of this record when I was still deeply convinced that the world was going to end. Like deeply, deeply convinced that the world was going to end. And I wrote it mostly during the winter of 2008, which was one of the worst winters I have lived through, in terms of what happened to me and in terms of what happened to all of my friends.
Right.
You know, that was like the period of time when, like, even going into the summer, it was still bad for a pretty long time. You know, my partner around that time was assaulted. My good friend D and banjo player slash backup singer in the Horse Museum got hit by a car and broke her arm and had to drop out of school. And we also couldn't work on the record for a couple of months because she broke her arm, so she couldn't play banjo anymore. We played, I think, like 2 shows during that period of time where she didn't play banjo. She just sat there with her arm like taped to her body and sang. But you know, people around us were getting sick, like real kinds of sick, and that's sort of been echoed a lot in this winter. You know, this winter, the drummer from the Horse Museum, Jason McCrimmon, broke his arm, and the sickness sort of got heavy again, and just lots of interpersonal stuff that is kind of
That's hard to get
unbelievable.
through. Yeah.
And I mean, everyone involved in the Horse Museum has their own stories about what happened during those winters. I don't want to speak, for all of them, obviously, but those are just some examples of some of the things that happened. But yeah, in the winter of 2008, I also had one of many blackouts that I've had, but the first and only blackout where I became violent against other people.
Right.
And it was very terrifying. I still don't remember anything about that night. I've been told about that night by other people many times. But I don't have any memory of it myself. I just know that I woke up in the hospital and had no idea why I was there. So, and this winter, those kinds of episodes started to occur again. So I'm on a new medication now, and I haven't had any episodes in, at least any major ones, in a couple months now.
It's really good.
It's really good to hear.
It's good to hear.
Yeah.
You mentioned your partner during that, and I wanted to ask, maybe this just speaks to how much I've kind of obsessed over this, but you spoke years ago during a tour, and there's a video of it. You said you don't really see the point of marriage, and you don't think you'll get married. And I believe you were with your partner at the time, even not during the tour, but I think you knew him at that point. But anyway, how has your view of marriage changed? And
Well, I am married.
Right. Congratulations.
So it has changed a little bit.
That much, yeah.
I definitely have a complicated relationship with marriage, and the politics surrounding marriage. I still kind of think that marriage is fucked up. But I don't think that the idea of sort of committing yourself to a partner is fucked up. And unfortunately, the way that sort of social structures are currently means that if you want your partner to, for example, be there in the hospital with you when things are bad, being married helps with that a lot.
Right, marriage is the legal framework by which we define that partnership, but it also gets kind of tangled up in the religious implication of what marriage means. But if you still want that legal framework,
well, the religious and the social, because there are a lot of social expectations about what marriage means, and marriage means a very different thing to me and my husband than it does to most people. We don't have a very traditional marriage whatsoever.
On that, what is your marriage like? What would you define it as? It's not personal.
I don't know. I don't know how to answer that. I mean, it's nice. But we're two very different people in a lot of ways, but I think that we learn from each other because of that. He's a much more rational-minded, sort of articulate human being than me, and I am a lot more illogical and impulsive and kind of out there. So he keeps me kind of grounded, and I kind of keep him floating,
Yeah, that's great.
But I mean, we are also non-monogamous, for example. So, we don't do it the scary way.
Right.
The scary way. I mean, yeah, and that's to get I know we're getting in really personal territory, so sorry if that's too much, but I guess I just think it's interesting that intersection of how the way no one I guess in this century now, in the past 10 years or so, people have been really thinking about like what actually is marriage as an institution a lot more than they have in the past. Of like what and what is marriage legally, what is socially, what is marriage, and like a lot of it is kind of words of how what's the difference between a marriage and a civil union, and just like the way we define these things and apply our own sort of personal biases to like what those kind of words mean goes a lot into it.
Instead of writing a song about gay rights and gay marriage, I wrote a song about marrying a horse.
It's not a bad alternative.
I wanted to, I mean, it's like partly a joke, yes, but it's also like, this is how absurd this institution is to me. And in particular, when I wrote that song, I really felt like that institution was completely absurd and completely worthless. I mean, I'm obviously now in that institution, so, you know, but I think you can be in something and still question it and still wonder what it is. My new motto in the past little while, and it's actually something that I'm probably going to get printed onto Horse Museum t-shirts, is your politics are allowed to be complicated. So.
Yeah, and that's and I think too, I mean, not to say necessarily that it's like it's played out per se, but like making a song about like gay rights at this point is almost like it's you're either talking to someone who already is on your side, or someone who doesn't care too much to hear what you have to say about that, and that's a much more interesting and subtle way of like kind of just pointing out like how ridiculous this whole conversation sort of sounds when you put it and like talk about marrying a horse. At least that's the way I see it.
Right.
Well, Jordan, you've been doing the same thing kind of, Casey was talking about marriage, but you've been doing the same kind of thing for gender as well, or specifically like identity itself. Could you talk about that?
Well, I don't identify as anything.
Right.
I use a he pronoun because it's like that's just sort of what I've been given, and I'm working with it, you know?
Yeah.
They pronouns are fine too. But he or they are what I use. And yeah, I don't know. I mean, I have a very confusing relationship with identity politics because of that. People in particular ask about it in terms of the record a lot, because the record sort of comes across as, to some people, as a sort of cisgendered person who's in love with a trans person.
Right.
Which is not exactly correct, but I don't identify as trans. Like, trans isn't the word that I would use for myself, because trans implies sort of a movement from one state to another, if that makes sense.
Yeah,
you know?
no.
Yeah, like a transition.
Right.
And I mean, that's a simplification of what the prefix trans means. I wrote a whole academic paper last year about the prefix trans. But I'm not going to bore you to tears with academia.
No worries.
But but I mean, I sort of fit. I feel like my identity is something sort of more formless.
Yeah, I mean, what you mentioned about the word itself, though, is kind of what I meant too about marriage. That like a lot of these issues in regards to sex and LGBT issues and things like that have come up have like a very strong tie to linguistics and kind of like the way, you know, like what people define themselves and the meaning of the word and stuff like that. And that's what gets people a lot of times confused or upset about things, because there's like, people have very...
Well, what are you? Right.
Yeah, what are you? And people also have different definitions of like what they think some of these words mean and stuff like that. And like, people would assume, you know, like if you were to describe your situation, like, so you're trans. Well, no. And so it's like, well, that's what that means.
Yeah, it's complicated.
So, yeah, it is complicated.
Yeah. I think all of those words have a necessity to them, because some people feel comfortable once they're inside of a category. Some people
Right.
feel completely like, now that I have this word, I know what I am. And that's very comforting for some people. I find that as soon as I try to put a word on what I am completely uncomfortable and want to squirm out of it. So, you know, because I don't like any of the words that I've been given to choose from. So I'm still looking for the right word, I guess. But formless is lately the one that I like.
Formless is nice. I think we can both that
Which
one
is
too.
a Georges Bataille idea.
Kind of in segueing between being personal and talking about the album, but a big influence of yours for divorce lawyers was Henry Darger.
Mm-hmm.
And I've seen you mention him a few times and what songs were inspired by that, but what about Darger as a person made him so special to you? Or was it just that he was an outsider artist, or his work like, man, I had everyone in this call watch the movie, his documentary, and
Mm-hmm.
I have his book, and I just want to know how he relates to you.
The thing about Darger's story that I find very upsetting in a lot of ways is that he was discovered by the world of fine art, which means that people like me saw it, and that's really great,
Right.
and I'm really glad to have come into contact with that work. But at the same time, it means that that work is fragmented now forever. I mean, he wrote this. It's people forget that work is a story,
Right.
and that now, because it's in art collections everywhere and whatever, they're not allowed to publish the story in complete full, in all of its 15,000 pages,
Right.
because now it's high art, and it's not worth something if you put it out into a book that everyone can read. And I think I sort of relate to this sort of keeping of things and these scattered artifacts that to you go together in a very certain way. And I think I have this fear that when I die, that I'll get scattered in the way that I don't want to be scattered. Like everything belongs together.
Right.
It's all one long piece, really. I sometimes might express it in different mediums or whatever, but to me, it kind of all is one larger work. And so that's part of what attracts me to the Henry Darger story. But I mean, also obviously the obvious things, the sort of weird gender confusion that's going on there, the sort of childhood rebellion, the sort of wildness of children. These girls who have
Right.
male genitalia. There's something really like beautiful and striking and strange about his work.
Right. And it also
and
comes from his
the
past.
scale of it,
Right. And also his past, right? He was unfortunately in a few institutions and
Mm-hmm.
like didn't have the best childhood growing up. It all led him to create that and be able to live in that sort of atmosphere and create those things.
Yeah.
I want to ask about Frank O'Hara, and
Yeah.
he seems to be your favorite poet, and I discovered him through you, and I've really been enjoying his work. But is there anything particular that strikes you about O'Hara, or?
He just has this like ability to take a moment and really look at exactly what is ecstatic about that moment.
Exactly.
And
It's the
articulate that
expression. Right.
so beautifully. That the poem of his that I think is most famous and that people know the most is the "Having a Coke with You"
Right.
poem. Which during my depression, I was sort of rereading all my Frank O'Hara, that giant collection of his poems, and I came upon that poem again, which I hadn't read in a number of years, and just wept. It's like
Yeah.
it's just such a beautiful, like in a good way, like not.
Right.
It's not because it's a sad poem.
It's just so
because
expressive.
so perfect. It's just so perfect. I don't know, and I don't know if I can like put into words any better than that.
No
What
worries.
it is that he does, but Um, they're sometimes just they're so simple sometimes, but I keep returning to them, you know, year after year, and I just find more and more in those poems. You know, they're often about a very simple thing, or it seems to be, but there's just a lot of layers going on to them.
Exactly. You've written quite a bit of poetry yourself as well,
Mm-hmm.
and I think you've even published a few e-zines or whatever you once called them.
Mm-hmm.
Who inspires your writing, do you think, or does it really just come from your experiences?
It mostly just comes from my experiences, but at least for my poetry.
Right.
Because the way that I write poetry versus the way that I write fiction is very different, even though a lot of people feel like my fiction is kind of like poetry. But my poems are actually often more straightforward than my fiction.
Yeah, I can definitely see that.
I once tried to do a degree in creative writing, but I dropped out, and part of the reason was because my professor really hated the fact that my poetry was too much like fiction and vice versa. He was like, "You've got them confused," and I was like, "It's
You've got it
whatever. I
confused.
don't care."
Yeah, it's creative writing.
Yeah.
Um,
So yeah, I started writing poems again a couple years ago after having been quite discouraged by that program. I didn't write poems for a long time, and I just stuck to fiction. But a couple years ago, I started writing poems again, and I think only in the past year and a half or two have I really begun to figure out what me writing a poem actually is.
right.
Like, what's my poet voice? And I think I'm still figuring it out a little bit, but it's been a place to put a lot of catharsis, and is probably also part of why I'm not writing as many songs, because most of what I would probably put into songs is just ending up in poems.
It's not a bad place for it to go either.
Yeah.
It's still nice either way. There are a few more things. Side projects. Obviously, you've done Children Eating Birds. Can you talk about a little bit of how that was different from your solo stuff and with Horse Museum?
Yeah, Children Eating Birds was a very different process. It was basically just that my friend Lowell Sostamy, who I did that project with, he would make these musical compositions without any singing on them. And then he would send them to me over the internet, and I would... they were often kind of short and a little fragmented, you know, like it was never like, oh, here's like 4 bars where you would sing 4 lines or, you know, whatever.
Right.
He would switch around a lot. And so I had to sort of get used to listening to them and sort of humming along with them until I could figure out sort of what kinds of things I could sing to it. And then I would sing to them and add a bunch of layers of my voice and then send it back to him. And he would occasionally add some more stuff after that. Sometimes he added his own singing to go with my singing. And then it was done.
Right.
So it was just sort of like it was fun, and like I got to do a lot of things with my voice that I wouldn't normally do in my own songs, because it was sort of layered singing and
right. It's very abstract.
Yeah,
like, it would be really tough to just layer your voice across or really figure out what to do with each of those pieces.
Yeah, there's literally on one of the songs of Hospitals, there's a recording of me trying to eat my own arm. Amongst other things. So did weird stuff with my voice. But those were all mostly recorded at night as well.
So we talked about Hospitals before in Winters, but is night as difficult as those things? Or is it just something that comes and goes?
I'm not much of a sleeper.
Right.
So the night is when I get shit done. And I kind of like sometimes the restrictions of working at night. You know, you have to be, maybe sometimes you have to be a little quieter,
Right.
and sometimes you have to be, you know, a little bit more careful. Like the recording of the Liz Phair cover that's on the Covers album, I recorded in my bathroom at 5:30 in the morning, and I was trying to be quiet enough that I didn't wake my husband up because the bathroom is right next to our bedroom.
Oh man.
So, but I feel like that like added sort of,
Absolutely. That was one of my
more
other
to
favorites
that,
on the album.
you know.
All right. I want to ask, what have you been enjoying lately as far as music goes? Have you discovered any bands you really like, or?
I've been listening to a lot of Frankie Cosmos, who is this singer from New York. My friend Dakota recommended her music to me, and she's fantastic. I've also been having a love affair with the first 3 Bjork albums.
Good choice.
I can't stop listening to Post. Yeah, I don't hear new music too much. I really liked the new Angel Olsen record that came out this year a lot, and I went and saw her play not too long ago. I went and saw The Knife when they came and played here, and that was really, really, really great. I really liked their last
I
record.
really wanted to go to that show.
It was fucking fantastic.
Damn it.
You should have gone.
I was broke.
It's
Oh,
That's fair. It was expensive.
it's a little easy to get caught up in that of like a lot of people just try to listen to like as many new releases as much as you possibly can, you know, and like all the stuff that's coming out this year and like comparing like, oh, what's my favorite album of the year so far? And it's like it's very easy to get caught up in that, but there's like so much older music out there that like still like it still amazes me even now is like how many things there are that are undiscovered that you can just find and be like, this is a whole world of artists that I had no idea even existed from this time period, I guess.
Yeah, I tend to
Yeah.
feel pretty comfortable in like the music that I just already have, and I just still listen to that a lot and really like it. I mean, I like hearing new things, but I don't. I mean, the way that that'll happen is like someone will be like, "You should listen to this." Like a friend of mine will recommend it to me, and I'll listen to it because otherwise I don't know. Like there's just too much music.
It's too hard to
Yeah.
filter.
I don't know how to, you know. And like I said, I hate reading music reviews because they're just like it's this band plus this band plus this band, and I'm like, I don't even
I'm on
know
the
who
same
those 3
page.
bands are. Like you gotta describe the music for me. Like, you know.
Yeah, and I think that's like even within just a band that you already know too. There's so much room where you can come back to it a bunch of times if it's been a few years or whatever, and just be like, there's always new layers or things that you didn't notice the first time, or a new way of thinking about it that like
Yeah.
you can keep finding and repeat listens to.
Yeah.
Alright, I was just going to ask about, we've talked about the split you have coming out, the new book that will show itself eventually in the movies too. What's next for you? What's ahead of you? The new album might be coming out next year? The full album, that is.
Yeah, we are going to begin recording it this summer. We are actually having our first band practice on Sunday.
Excellent.
So we will see how it's sounding and how long it takes for us to get these songs tight because we want to record them live. So, you know, we got to get tight. But yeah, the next record is sort of my main priority, and the split is, I think, going to be fun because it's going to be really. The split is just me and a guitar. It's just like very simple.
It's just going back to like the first albums you released in a way.
Yeah. But better songs.
Better songs, nice. Does it have a release date yet, or like an estimate?
I think it'll be in the fall sometime, but I don't know. It's still pretty abstract because the other side of the split is still not done. And then we're still sort of looking at who wants to put it out for us. The person that I'm putting it out with knows some folks who might actually put it out for us as an actual object. So I think it might be a real object in the world.
Do you have any plans for a tour?
I'm going on tour in 2 weeks through the northeast of the States. So from June 17th to the 30th, I'll be on tour. And then in the winter, I might go on tour again.
Excellent. It's good to see you touring again.
Yeah, I missed it.
Do you think you'll mostly be playing stuff off Divorce Lawyers now, or do you think maybe you'll mix stuff off Decline Western Civilization, your new album, or what do you intend to kind of put on the set list?
I tend to not play much more than 5 or 6 songs, unless the room is sort of demanding that I do more. But I leave that up to them.
Right.
So I tend to play like 2 Divorce Lawyer songs and 2 Decline songs and a cover, usually.
Okay.
That's like my go-to.
Do you think it will be different now that you have kind of like, I don't want to call it like fame or anything, but you're pretty popular among a certain set of people. Do you think it'll be different touring this time when you're known? Do you think like the response will be better? I know you've talked about before, like, the audiences before weren't always feeling it what you're doing. So how do you expect it to go this time around?
Well, the few shows that I already did play this year were definitely already different because it was like that, because people were there to see me, which is very different from just like, oh, we're going to the show, the local show that is happening, and some guy is going to play amongst other things or whatever. And then I end up being scary or whatever. So it's definitely different, but it's actually made me like less comfortable. So that's something I'm still dealing with. I'm still trying to figure out how to like be comfortable about that.
Well, hopefully we've helped make you comfortable here.
There's like more pressure, I guess, of just like what people are expecting of you because they know you already, or.
Yeah, partially. It's partially that like now I'm like, well, now I can't play like in just an okay show, like it's got to be a good one. Which like everyone has bad shows; they just happen. So like sorry if you catch me on a bad night. But it's partly that, and then just partly that like I feel sometimes more of an obligation to play songs they know.
Right.
And certain songs that maybe I'm like not in the mood to play that particular day or whatever. Sometimes you'll catch me and I'll want to play those songs, but sometimes not. I'm going to have another smoke also, if that's okay.
Yeah, sure.
No, that's cool.
Thank you again for staying with us for so long.
Oh, no worries. It's like the afternoon. I got nothing to do. I have things I could be doing, but
There's always things you could be doing, but
yeah, exactly. Fuck doing those things. Where did I put my lighter? That is the eternal question.
Jordan, didn't you stop smoking a little while ago? Like a few years ago, actually. I don't mean to admonish you or anything for it, but...
Yeah, no, I did. I quit in 2012 for 8 months.
There you go.
I was doing so good. And then... I need to grab a hoodie. It's a little windy and cold out there. But then... I broke because I had a really rough semester at school, and there was no way I was going to get through that without smoking. And now I just can't seem to stop again.
Oh, it's okay. I think you'll find a point where you can quit again.
Yeah,
Head Buddies had that problem.
I'm hoping
Not
to
exactly.
try and quit again soon. But I can't quit right before a tour because even though like smoking is terrible for my voice, it also, if I quit smoking, my throat closes up for a couple of weeks.
Oh no.
Good.
Like I can't really sing at all then I can sing fine after, but it's just like, this tour is in 2 weeks, so I can't quit right now.
There'll be time.
It's definitely not good though. I'm terrible. I just smoke and smoke
No,
and
it's
smoke.
it's okay.
No, I mean, yeah, and it kind of depends on what's going on too. Like, you can definitely use it as like yeah, like if you have like a really rough semester or whatever, it's sort of like it can be very helpful in that way. As much as it's bad for you, like I understand completely what you mean by that.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so you're going
So
to
what
get
do
into the
all
life
y'all
story.
do?
Yeah, I just finished school at this point. Like,
Yeah,
I went to Humber.
Students mostly.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
Actually, Robert is a film student. Or
yes.
was.
Yeah.
Where? How are we going to?
I don't
Yeah,
know.
so I
yeah.
think there's an interesting comparison there.
Yeah, I went to Humber. Yeah, there's not much in the way of film there.
Right.
Yeah. I spent basically a 3.5 hour bus ride, a 3.5 hour commute each way for almost nothing, I feel like. So fuck that.
Did you commute from Oshawa?
Yeah, so like I
Oh,
would take a
man.
bus, go train, then I'd hop on the subway, transfer over at St. George, go to Kipling, get on another bus, then I'm at Humber.
That's
Damn.
intense.
Yeah. Ugh.
I didn't even want to do the commute to York.
Oh, you even thought about going to York? That was going to be my choice, like growing up.
Well, I went to York originally.
Uh-huh.
That's where I did the creative writing program that I dropped out of.
Yeah.
And then I
And-
went to U of T for film, and that's where I am right now. But when I was applying for grad school, I was like, should I go to York maybe? Because I really like their profs there that are in the film department. Like
Right.
John Grayson teaches there, which is fucking cool. But I was like, I just can't do the commute. I just can't do it. And it's
Yeah.
not like that bad considering a commute from Oshawa to Humber. That's insane.
Yeah. Well, I was like I was really into it. Like when I started it, like I was watching 5 films a day. Like I was like going into it like I'm gonna like fuck this course up.
Yeah.
And like gradually over time, it just like I just started not only losing,
It wears you down.
Yeah, losing interest
Yeah.
in almost everything else, and it's just like fuck.
Yeah, this past 6 months I haven't watched that many movies.
Yeah.
I've been kind of taking a breather from the cinema, if you will.
Yeah.
That's good. What is the movie you've enjoyed most this year? What do you say? Or even last year? Like,
I saw
What are some
Under the
recent
Skin
favorites?
a couple weeks ago, and that film was fucking incredible.
I just need to watch it.
It's so good. But other than that, I haven't seen that many new movies this year. I saw Nymphomaniac too, which was a mess.
Yeah.
Oh god.
But I had to
Nymphomaniac in
see it. I was
general.
curious.
Yeah. No,
Wait,
it's a train wreck.
what were your thoughts on Nymphomaniac? Because I actually had to review it for like my course.
Right. I really liked parts of it a lot, and then it just kept losing me. It was like, the scene with
Yeah.
Uma Thurman was fucking hilarious.
It's every Laura's movie. It starts out strong and then, well,
Yeah, the first half was better than the second half, although there were things in the second
Yeah.
half that I really liked, and then,
Yeah.
I don't know, I really hated the ending.
Yeah, the ending was. I felt the ending was the most forced thing about it.
Like, the whole last chapter
The last
was
chapter,
really
yeah.
like, what's going on?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh,
I really
yeah.
wanted it to just end with her setting fire to cars. I was like, that was way better.
it wouldn't have been.
Yeah, I've been meaning to see Under the Skin for a while though. Like I haven't been keeping up with like what's coming out. Getting really bad with that.
I usually go see a bunch of shit at TIFF, and then I sort of cover myself for the next year. So I saw like 16 movies at TIFF last year, and they've been gradually coming out. Some of them, but I mean, I've seen them. So
yeah, I've been meaning to go to TIFF like for a long time, but it's like I don't know how much any of the films cost, and I'm assuming they're like fucking expensive as balls.
it's like $20 a ticket.
Oh man,
That's not that bad.
It's not that bad. Especially like at this point, I mostly go see things that probably aren't going to get distribution, or if they are going to get distribution, it's going to be later.
Yeah.
I don't go see anything that's like a gala that's going to open in like 2 weeks anyway, or whatever.
Yeah.
Because then I'll just go see it in the movie theater if I really need to see it. But a lot of things that I go see at TIFF like disappear and never get seen again.
Yeah.
like unfortunately, most of us here aren't as knowledgeable when it comes to film. Like my favorite movie is probably still Synecdoche, New York, or something like that.
It's a good movie though.
It is.
Yeah.
Hey, there you go. I appreciate it.
Yeah.
I think he just means he's like, oh, that's
Yes.
like, that's what you would say, like, because you don't know anything, like,
No.
I don't know.
No,
my,
I mean,
yeah. No, what were you gonna say?
no, what were you gonna say?
I was gonna say like my default favorite film, because it's hard for me to like, because I hate that question so much, is like Leaving Las Vegas, which is, I can understand why people have an aversion to that film, but I just think everything about it is just so damn perfect.
I don't think I've seen it since the 90s.
Yeah, it's just, people say it's like just like a
Probably
hooker with a
revisit
heart.
it.
Yeah, people just say it's like a hooker with a heart of gold and a drunk story, but I think it has so much more going on with it than that.
Yeah.
It's just so earnest and personal, and I think it's also because it was one of those the first film I've ever seen where, like, 20 minutes after, I'm like sitting in the dark, perfectly still, like kind of in awe of what I just saw. I was like, yeah.
Jordan,
That's
actually, I forget. Jordan, what is your favorite movie? I know you have said this before, or mentioned it
It's
before.
Tropical Malady,
Oh.
which is a beautiful film from Thailand by a filmmaker named Apichatpong Weerasethakul.
I am so proud of you for being able to pronounce that. Like, wow. That's so beyond my ability. Even that.
Well, gotta say it all the time because it's my favorite movie.
Well, there you
It's great. You should all check it out if you haven't seen it.
No, I've seen one of his films. What was it called? It's the most popular one, Syndromes in the History, or a Century rather.
Syndromes in a Century. Yeah.
Yes. Usually that's the one like I think most people know. But what did you think of it compared to Tropical? I guess.
I mean, I like all of his films a lot. He's kind of one of my.
Did we lose you?
Did we lose
Oh, no, I think we did.
Oh, okay. No, he's still there. Well, he's still on the call anyway. I just didn't know. It sounded like he cut off for a second.
Yeah.
Hello,
that's all right.
sorry, I got a phone call for a second.
Oh, okay.
Oh no worries. Did you answer that?
No,
Okay.
I think it was a telemarketer.
Aw.
It's always a telemarketer.
Right?
Yeah. So who are you voting for in the general?
Oh, Canadian
the general?
question.
Canadian questions.
Canadian.
Oh no, I don't even know. I don't want to talk about politics.
That's
They're
fine.
terrible.
It's alright.
No,
It's alright,
it's
Jordan.
fine.
No one does.
No one does.
This election is a mess. Oh fuck.
I feel so bad for Toronto though. Like,
Yeah.
it was nice when I grew up there though.
Whoever wins, we all lose.
Yeah, it's true.
It's literally Alien versus Predator.
Oh.
Yeah, exactly.
So, Jordan, you asked earlier. This is kind of just about us, though. I know Robert answered, but Casey, do you want to answer? Casey, what do you do?
Well, I'm a student, and speaking of no one wanted to talk about politics. I'm a political science and international studies double major.
Woohoo!
So that's me. No, the international studies part of it I'm a lot more focused on, but that's kind of my thing, I guess. But yeah, I just finished my second year, so I'm still not that far along. Tim's education. So
Yeah, I'm an early childhood education major, so
Okay.
my
Cool.
dream job is like to teach elementary school, which sounds so silly, but
No, that's not silly at all. Yeah, my husband was a political science major also.
oh really?
Yeah,
It's
he's
Do you-
really
do
into
you guys
contemporary
ever get
Canadian
into it?
politics. Oh yeah, we get into it.
I can't imagine you disagree too much, though.
We disagree sometimes. He's a little bit more of like the system is broken, but let's fix it. And I'm more like, let's just destroy everything.
Right.
Those are our differing politics a little bit, but we keep each other in check.
You spoke about this a bit earlier, but conspiracy theories. What were you really into back a few years ago?
I was really into 2012, of course.
Uh-huh.
I was really into chemtrails.
Yeah.
I was really into FEMA death camps.
Right.
The pleasant ones.
The pleasant ones. There you go.
What changed your mind on those kind of things, though, or like what made you?
Or do you still believe in them?
Besides
Actually,
2012 for the obvious reasons, but like what made you more or less into those now than you had been?
I still am into them a little bit, but I find that I don't know. I mean, honestly, I was just crazy back then in a way that I am not now. I am still crazy, but I was not medicated back then, for one thing. And people with my particular disorder tend to think the world is ending.
right.
And I really truly believed that was happening until I was medicated. And once the medication had a few years in my system, I was a little bit less obsessed with the end of the world. But I mean, I still believe in some of that other stuff. I just don't really know what about it I believe.
All right. Well, that kind of leads. Well, I guess not totally on topic, but you didn't just think about the apocalypse in your waking hours. You've written a lot about dreams, and like you've had a lot of divorce lawyers, as I understand it, was about dreams you had, and specifically those about the apocalypse. So it made into your subconscious too.
Yeah. Yeah, the film that I made is just a reoccurring dream that I had. So it's funny when people ask me about specific images in it or whatever, because I'm like, I don't know, my brain just came up with them. Like, I mean, I have my own interpretation of what I think might be going on in it, I guess, but I'm like, this is just a dream that I had that scared the crap out of me for a long time.
Do you normally keep like a dream journal or anything like that, or like do you mess with lucid dreaming at all?
Yeah, I used to lucid dream a lot more. I take medication that helps me sleep at this point, and I don't lucid dream as much because of the medication, and I don't remember my dreams as much because of the medication. But when I do remember them, I make sure to write them down, and they end up in my work a lot.
Right. I used to lucid dream a ton, and then what happened was I had like what is the thing called, a night terror, or not night? Is it night sleep paralysis? That's the thing.
Sleep
I was like,
paralysis.
nope.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then I was like, nope, not again, never again.
Yeah.
So I can't
I
imagine.
used to have
how
night
scary.
terrors a lot.
Oh gosh.
Yeah.
Those are the least fun things when you cannot sleep and your nights just kind of like, I'm staying up to avoid sleeping. that's when it becomes a problem instead of just I'm staying up because I need to write this fucking paper.
Yeah, and I mean, I started having night terrors a bit again in the past few months, and so my sleep has been kind of erratic and crazy because I
Right.
haven't been exactly desiring sleep because I've been having really bad dreams again.
Yeah.
So, you know,
Yeah.
my sleep has been in and out.
We should just get a last few more questions, I think.
Yeah, I'm sorry. We've been keeping it for so long as it is.
It's fine.
God, Jordan, this probably will be cut out, but you're like the most pleasant person. I appreciate you so much being here. I've been smiling this whole time because it's just thank you for being here.
Anytime.
All right. I don't know. Well, I'm trying to think if there's anything really pressing that I wanted to ask. Otherwise, Robert, is there anything else that you had? I can't.
For people who are like with somebody who could possibly have a mental illness, what would you suggest doing to help them through that difficult time?
Oh, that's a big question. But honestly, I'd say that the most important things to do would be to continue to have faith in your partner's ability to articulate themselves.
Mm-hmm.
I think that one thing that people do wrong a lot is that they think, oh, well, you're crazy, so what you're saying is therefore crazy and is coming from a bad place and you don't mean what you're saying.
Right.
That kind of sometimes might be true, but you still need to listen to where that stuff is coming from in the moment, because it's still real for the person in the moment,
Right.
Regardless of whether or not that's how you feel later, that's how you feel right now, and it's important to respond to that. It's also really important to listen to what the person says they need. So, space issues can become very real. People like me, and I'm not going to say people like me, but at least in my experience, I oscillate pretty hard back and forth sometimes between really needing physical comfort and really not wanting to be touched at all.
Right.
So, you have to be able to read the cues of that and listen to the requests for that, and also try your best not to take it personally, because when your partner is acting distant from you or wants space, that often people want to read into that. Often people want to read into that it's that they've done something wrong or what have you, but it's just it's just I just need to be alone for a while, or I need you to not leave now, or whatever it may be. I think that those are the most important ones.
Well, unfortunately, there's this huge stigma usually around all sorts of mental disorders and things, and I don't know. I think people are starting to learn that there's so much to learn from people, no matter what.
Yeah, there is a lot of stigma about it, and it's.
Does it bother you a lot, or do you feel like it doesn't usually affect you at all?
It affects me pretty hard in my day-to-day life. People are better about it than they once were. But honestly, the biggest stigma about it that I really dislike is when I'm actually at the hospital. Because if you are taken to an emergency room because you're having some sort of episode,
right?
What happens is they don't help you until your drug tests come back clean.
Wow.
Because
that must take at least an hour or so, doesn't it?
Yeah, because they think that you're fucked up on drugs. Especially because I live in a city and drugs are obviously a problem in a city, and so a lot of people who come in and are saying crazy things and not making sense may be on drugs, and that may be the problem. And I understand sort of from a medical standpoint why you have to do that first. but it sucks.
Yeah.
Because people just think that you like took something weird, and it's like, no, I didn't take anything. This is just the way my brain actually is, which is like a weird thing
Right.
to have to go through.
It doesn't sound the least bit funny there. I'm sorry about that.
Yeah.
Well, it is getting better at least. I think that probably within the next 10 years or so, be a lot better for everyone.
Things are definitely better. I mean, my experience going to the hospital this time was much better than my last experience going to the hospital.
Yeah.
I mean, and this time I wasn't arrested and all that sort of stuff.
Were you
so-
really last time?
Hmm?
Was there really a time where you were arrested just for that?
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh man.
So, it's definitely getting better,
That's good.
but we're not all the way there yet.
Right.
Well, let's hope you do. You've been an absolute pleasure to talk to, Jordan.
Yeah.
Like, we can't really express how much that this means to us that you would be willing to sit down and just chat with us.
Yeah.
For sure, anytime.
That's why we were so nervous too, is because we're like, oh man, getting to interview
It's
like
Jordan's-
a real musician. Like, whoa.
Yeah, well, it's not just that, but it's just like you have such an interesting life in general, and there's so many things to ask about, but should we ask about them? Or, like, so much went into this. We have a massive paste bin of things open that we should and shouldn't ask you. Well, I guess not shouldn't, but, it's like...
Well, I'm an open book, really, and honestly, I don't mind doing interviews because I don't like to be like mysterious.
Right.
And I think that a lot of my art is very closely related to the things that are happening in my life, and makes more sense to people if they know some stuff about me. So
that kind of opens up another question then. Is there anything you would like to say about your music, or kind of like anything you'd like to settle or explain or put out there that we haven't mentioned?
It's hard to think of something off the top of my head.
I can imagine.
But I don't know. I mean, I can give you the sassy answer to the new.
Give the sassy answer. Give it.
I mean, my biggest problem with that comparison, honestly, is that people say that I sound like him.
Yeah, that's not even true.
And I find that to be frustrating because I do have a lot of dysphoria, in particular around my voice. Because my voice is one of the things about me that is perhaps most male and perhaps most unchangeable. And of course, like if I lived in a dream world, I would, whenever I opened my mouth, Diane Cluck would come out, or something. And so that's not the world we live in, though. I have a big nasally boy voice, and so that comparison, again, while it's like not totally unfounded, often just makes me sad because I can't do anything about my voice.
Man, I had the same problem for a very long time, which is this can all be cut out anyway. But like, I was mute until I was like 4 years old because of events and things, and like I needed to go through speech therapy and all this stuff, and I'd never liked my voice at all, and here I am doing this interview. It's
right.
Yeah, it's weird where you end up, and I think a lot of people have related to your voice and enjoyed your singing. So if there's anything to be gained or learned or appreciated, it's that it's not so bad.
Yeah, I mean, I've gotten used to hearing my own voice at this point.
Yeah, that's a lot of it. Just getting used to it, just adjusting to reality of what you can't change, I guess.
Yeah, and what your voice sounds like recorded or to other people versus in your own head too.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
It sounds better in my head.
It sounds better in my head too. I think most people would say.
Yeah.
Most people think I'm white when. Like
Yeah.
everybody on the chat thought I was white before they saw me with Kevin Shields.
And then they're like,
Right.
"What?"
It's just
So,
weird sometimes.
yeah, voices
Yeah,
can.
it's
Not that
complete
not
total
that matter.
dysphoria.
Yeah,
Yeah.
not that it matters to me at all, but it's just like it's kind of weird sometimes.
Yeah, no, it is weird. People make assumptions about you based on things like the way you look and your voice. Um, you know,
Right.
I have to wonder if I would get those kinds of comparisons if I used a she pronoun. Um,
I think you would have still,
yeah,
because people are just like the internet's the internet. People are people, no matter what. I don't know. I think it's the instrumentation on the album that really lets that comparison, and then they can bridge. Oh, the instruments sound like Jordan sounds like this or this. I mean, it's such a stretch. Even then,
Yeah,
it's
like
such a stretch.
it's like you get once you get that idea though, then you're gonna like try to look for all the other things to connect the dots to what you want to think already. Like
Right.
once you like, it's gonna say like you're gonna pick things that are gonna try to reinforce what you think about it already. So then all the other things like the voice and all that will be compared to.
Right.
But I don't think that is fair.
You just have to trust us and most fans that it's a different thing, and
yeah.
yes,
There seem to be enough people who don't speak about it that way, but
right. It's the select few that really are bothersome.
well, it's just like I get all these Tumblr questions lately because there was once a period of time when no one knew that my Tumblr was me.
It was just porn and screenshots. It was great.
Yeah, it was. It was a lot easier back then. And then there was like there's just like a time when someone I guess figured out that it was me, and I now have all these followers who are following me because they like the band, and so I get questions all the time about it. But there are questions that I don't answer that I get over and over and over again, just over and I get the Nutrimoke Hotel question over and over and over again, and I get the when is it coming out on vinyl question over and over.
Oh god. You've even answered that one before. I swear to God, you have.
I did answer it eventually because I was like, okay, guys, like, stop asking me this.
But hey, you did say you were coming out with T-shirts. That's something.
Yeah, I'm gonna make some T-shirts.
Yeah, there was something I was gonna say about that. I forgot.
It's all right. Jordan, that's a good thing though to mention that the questions you get a lot. You can respond to those and maybe say, these are the things that please don't ask me about anymore.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, again, I'm an open book. It's just I've been asked that question in an interview before, and so I feel like I've already answered it, and I don't really know what to say beyond
I
that.
remembered what I was going to say. I was going to say, if people making that comparison, and I'm sure it's, as we've already said, it's very tiring and bothersome, but I think the way you're talking about the new record will kind of put that to rest. Like, the people who are following you are going to, when they hear that, they'll see that, like, it's not the whole different direction of the instrumentation and things like that will show what is... it's your own thing and it's more personal than that, and it's not just like it's not going to be as easy to just make that comparison.
Yeah, I think that's very true, and my voice has changed a lot since Divorce Lawyers already anyway, because I was like 21 or something when we recorded that.
You could even say that about, like, from your first album you released to Mantra songs even. It's such it's a strange change. It's
constantly shifting. My voice has lots of different modes.
Yeah.
Depending on what kind of song it is that I'm singing, or the covers were really fun to do because because when you're singing songs by other people who have very distinct voices, you have to figure out, okay, well, like, how do I sing it in my distinct voice? And sometimes that was like a struggle, and sometimes, like that Liz Phair song, for example, took a really long time to figure out how to sing because I don't sound anything like Liz Phair.
Right.
Like, at all. I can't do that like sexy, like broody
Yeah.
girl thing. So I had to do something else. My friend, a friend of mine joked that my version of the song might as well have been called Shatter Sad Bottom version.
No, it's not even sad though. It's good.
I feel like that recording is a little bit upsetting.
No, but think of the circumstance that you created it in, right? That's not like it's not like something you could really. I don't know. I think it's good. I like it. I don't see the sadness in it.
Yeah. I emailed some of the covers to some of the people who I covered. Mostly the ones that are like small enough that I feel like they would respond.
Right.
Like I didn't email Courtney Love or Liz Phair or Third Eye Blind. But I sent Jamie Stewart the Shoo Shoo cover, and I sent Diane Cluck her cover, and I sent Jens Lekman his cover. I haven't heard from Jens, and I don't think I'm going to.
Well, Jamie must have replied, didn't he?
Yeah, Jamie replied. He said really lovely things. And Diane replied and said really lovely things. But the Jens Lekman cover in particular is one that I was really scared about putting on there because it's probably the scariest thing I've ever recorded. And
that's the other thing that really stood out to me.
I really felt, like the day that I did it, my husband came home and asked me, like, what'd you do today? And I was like, oh, I did a cover of that Jens Lekman song, A Higher Power. And he was like, oh, really? I want to hear it. And I was like, I don't know if you do. And then I played it for him, and he was like, this is actually the most terrifying thing I've ever heard.
Oh, no.
And then he was really upset because he was like, wait, you were suffocating yourself with a plastic bag, like, alone at home? And I was like, yeah, no, I did it safely. It's fine.
Safely you could do that.
Yeah, I was like, I don't know. And then I had a lot of trouble breathing for a couple of days. And but, you got to do it. You got to go all the way sometimes.
The end result is actually really incredible, too.
The which one?
The end result, he said, is really incredible.
The end result, yes. What are you talking about? I'm sorry.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. That song came from a really bad place. But, sometimes things come from a really bad place.
We should probably give Jordan a chance to, like, mention his new album. Or, like,
plugs if you want to
do plugs if you want to do plugs.
Oh, plugs. So I'm on tour. America. Plug number 1. Come see me on tour if you want. Plug number 2. I am going to be releasing cassette tape versions of the Covers record, as well as t-shirts. And then in the fall, I'm releasing a split with Unraveler, and then next year I'm releasing my new record, The Decline of Stupid Fucking Western Civilization. So look out. And I've also got another book that I'm going to submit to the Cake Train contest and hope see how that goes.
All right.
But if it doesn't win that, then I'll try and publish it some other way.
Well,
all right.
An incredible pleasure speaking to you, Jordan.
Totes.
And I don't know. I think we can. That was
Absolutely.
Excellent.
That was.
You
really
did your
good.
best, and like, I know you said you were worried about it at first, and maybe worried about it last night, but you did really well. You made us all feel less anxious, and
cool, good.
I know I sound like a fanboy, but oh. All right.
Well, if you ever want me to come play a show in Oshawa, let me know.
Oh, please come to Texas. That's the thing.
There's really no point to come to Oshawa for anything ever at all. That's why I told you I'm from Toronto, because it's just
Yeah.
like, who wants to say they're from Oshawa?
I mean, that's fair, but you know.
Well, yeah. Tim is in Texas, currently Dallas, formerly Austin, but I'm sure there would, if you ever went to Austin, there'd be a pretty receptive
Man,
audience there.
I think the furthest you've gone, Jordan, is like Arkansas. Didn't you go like to Little Rock or something?
I went
I
to
don't know.
Texas.
You went to Texas. Oh, man,
Yeah,
how
it was years ago now, though. I went in 2008 and 2010 to Texas.
I missed it the second time. I was a year too late.
Yeah, the first time we went to a bunch of places, and the second time I only went to Denton because all of my other Texas shows like fell apart
Oh no.
while I was there. It was a really like frustrating experience because I had a whole week of Texas shows booked, and then they all just like dominoes just fell over. So I played in Denton, and then I just went straight to New Mexico from there.
I'm sorry on behalf of Texas.
It's okay. Where in Texas do you live?
Dallas right now, but I used to live in Austin.
Right. Well, I will be down there again at some point, hopefully.
Well, now you have a chance. There you go, Tim.
Yes, yeah, I'm just
Are you
bumping
doing
it.
any shows in like Toronto anytime soon?
I am currently in the process of booking a show for early July, and then I'm also in the process of booking a show with Diane Cluck in September,
Oh wow.
which
That's
I'm
gonna be
Any
really
idea where
excited
those
about.
might be?
I don't know yet. That's part of the thing, is I don't know what spaces they're going to be at yet. The Diane Cluck show will be on September 17th. I know that much. I just don't know where yet. And the other one, it's looking like it's going to be probably at... oh God, what is the name of that space that I contacted? I don't remember. But
Don't
it'll
worry.
be posted on my show list. My Tumblr has like a link to my list of shows
Alright.
that I keep updated.
Is there anything you'd like to say to everyone who's listened to you? And like, we're going to be playing the album alongside all this, or maybe preempting this, or whatever. Is there anything you'd like to say to everyone who's given Divorce Lawyers and your older songs a listen? Basically to your fans in general.
What do I want to say to y'all? Keep being freaks. And I don't know.
That's fine.
That's
Thank,
good.
You don't have to say
thank you
anything
for
about it.
listening a
Oh,
lot.
there you go.
Thank you for
Alright.
listening a lot. It really means a lot to me.
Well, thank you for being here once again.
Thanks for having me.
Alright,
All right.
I think this is the wrap up for it,
Yes.
Fun to chat with you guys this afternoon.
Yeah.
but
Right.
fun for you.
Yeah.
Alright,
Have a good evening.
You
have
too.
a great day.
Right.
Peace.
Bye, guys.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye, Jordan.
Bye.